much importance and interest to all of us. It is my honor to moderate this session and be a part of the team who will discuss this topic, transforming healthcare through technology. Technology today, as we all know, is playing a pivotal role in transforming the way we live, we exist, and it is playing a major role in shaping our healthcare ecosystem. It is enhancing our efficiency, accessibility, and improving patient outcomes. It will also help us in making healthcare services affordable to all. Today, we shall be discussing regarding the government's visionary approach at leveraging information and communication technology for creating a digitally empowered healthcare ecosystem through Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission and eSanjeevani especially. Further, we'll have discussion on the medical genetics and regenerative medicine that form the basis for previously uncurable diseases and personalized tailor-made treatments. We'll then have industry perspectives and experiences related to commercially available medical technologies that are improving our healthcare, as well as the integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning that is revolutionizing diagnostics, treatment planning, and contributing to more precise and effective healthcare interventions. I will now hand over to the experts one by one so that we can delve more into detail particular topics. Mr. Sood for his discourse on eSanjeevani, and then one by one the speakers will come on the stage and they will deliver their session. Thank you.
Respected most Commissioner Sir and co-panelists and all the dignitaries here. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Government of Gujarat for putting together yet another vibrant version of this vibrant summit. And I'm really fortunate to be a part of this. So as you all would agree to me that there is a saying that whenever crisis comes up, it shakes up the entire ecosystem. And a similar crisis came up in 2020. We had COVID, and it shook not only specific part of the geography, but the entire globe. And this crisis led to a major shakeup everywhere. And this shakeup led to the emergence of leaders. As they say, whenever shakeup happens, leaders emerge. And India emerged as the leaders in digital health care delivery system. And eSanjeevani was, to some extent, we can say, born out of this major shakeup. And today, courtesy the leaders at the central level, Honorable Health Minister and his team, and including all the policymakers and health administrators in all the states, including the administrators we have here in Gujarat, they played such a wonderful role in ensuring that India shows up to the world and gets projected as the leaders in digital health to use digital technologies to deliver health services remotely. And in no time, we could, with their guidance and their leadership, put together a platform which is highly secured and scalable and has so quickly emerged to be the world's largest telemedicine platform by the fact that we've already served over 190 million patients remotely. That translates to around 20 crore patients. Am I pointed this way? If you could use it from there. Yeah, thank you. So eSanjeevani, as it was conceptualized, the Government of India, under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, had conceptualized eSanjeevani like a platform, telemedicine platform that was supposed to be made available across the country to enable specialized quality health services to just about every citizen in the country, especially those living in underprivileged, especially those who were underprivileged or living in remote and isolated communities. eSanjeevani was conceptualized in early 2019, and it was to show up as the cornerstone of Ayushman Bharat scheme, which is the world's largest health insurance scheme. With this kind of visionary leadership or visionary stance towards technology, the government of India had prepared this platform for primarily making healthcare services available to the rural populace who could not otherwise travel to the larger hospitals or bigger hospitals to get specialized care, and in a way could not reap the benefits of the Ayushman Bharat scheme. So eSanjeevani was primarily shaped as or conceptualized as the cornerstone of Ayushman Bharat scheme, and we had redesigned it or customized it as per the requirement of the government and started the rollout in November 2019. That was a couple of months before COVID struck the Indian shores. We had rolled out a proof of concept in the month of November 2019 in Andhra Pradesh, and the exercise was going on very well. We were doing around 100 consultations every day to start with, and it is in March, suddenly when everything came to a halt, Health Ministry reconnected with us and said that there is no means or no mechanisms for the entire country's healthcare delivery system to provide health services for non-COVID related conditions. And that is where the seeds were sown for a larger eSanjeevani, which could connect just about every citizen to a doctor, and that too free of cost. So we had, pre-COVID, we had designed a provider-to-provider telemedicine model because in India, patient-to-doctor consultations in a remote manner were not legitimized, as a result of which we had conceptualized provider-to-provider telemedicine. That was an assisted teleconsultation model, which would run between health and wellness centers, which are now called Ayushman Arogya Mandirs. These community health officers there would connect with the doctors in the hubs, and they would extend health services to the rural populace. But because of COVID, the government of India got into action as soon as they realized that the patients were not ready to see doctors and doctors were not ready to see patients in person for mutual benefits or for mutual concerns. They put in place telemedicine practice guidelines which legitimized patient-to-doctor remote consultations, as a result of which parallelly we could put together telemedicine second variant called eSanjeevani OPD, which was designed for patient-to-doctor consultations while the patients could rest in the confines of their homes. Next slide, please. So those two variants are currently operational, but telemedicine was primarily meant for the rural populace because they were the deprived or living on the other side of the digital divide, as a result of which we can see the adoption here. In around 3.5 years, eSanjeevani has served close to around 200 million patients. And in a single day, eSanjeevani has served more than 500,000 patients, that is around 5.15 lakhs, and over 202,000 providers, which includes doctors, specialists, community health workers, and other health workers, have been onboarded on eSanjeevani to provide remote health services. And currently, over 135,000 Ayushman Arogya Mandirs are enabled for extending remote health services in the rural areas. And 14,000 plus hubs have been put in place by the state administrations to provide services to these 135,000 health and wellness centers. And there are over 300 online OPDs as well available for just about any citizen to directly connect with the doctors. All is happening free of cost. And Gujarat has played a very important role, or rather a significant role. I would like to congratulate all the the political leadership here, the policymakers, health administrators, and the vibrant team of clinicians, health workers who put in a lot of efforts to ensure that today Gujarat has served over close to around a crore patients through eSanjeevani. To be specific, over 86 lakh patients have been served through eSanjeevani within Gujarat alone. And there are over 1,200 health workers who've been onboarded by Gujarat government on eSanjeevani. And close to around 8,000 health and wellness centers or Ayushman Arogya Mandirs have been enabled with eSanjeevani to provide health services to the populace in the rural areas. And that is why eSanjeevani has made a difference in the whole country. Not to say just the country, but even many other countries have expressed a lot of interest in the technology, in the way the government has reached the primary healthcare or has networked the primary healthcare sector across the country to provide digital health services. So these things have really amazed just about every country, be it a developed country or the developing countries. They are really awed at the way the Indian government and the states have achieved this feat. Next slide, please. And this is a month-wise depiction of the way eSanjeevani was used by the clinicians or by the policymakers in the states. And every consultation had added a lot of value to the beneficiaries, those who've used eSanjeevani. We see a couple of drops there, and these were the COVID waves initially, and then we had changed. We are now using eSanjeevani's second generation platform, and it is really heartening to note that when we have moved to the second generation of telemedicine, which is state of the art, which matches the platforms like Amazon or YouTube or Netflix, eSanjeevani is more or less comparable to those platforms as far as architecture, scalability, safety, and security is concerned. We changed over at the middle place somewhere around March of 2023. That is why we see the second dip, and we took time to once again train the entire workforce in the country to learn the newer platform, and now it is flying high, and every month eSanjeevani is serving over 10 million patients conveniently with the help of all the states across the country. Next slide, please. And during COVID, it was really so encouraging and promising to note that eSanjeevani was originally meant for non-COVID kind of general medicine applications, but because of forward-looking health administrators and the political leadership, it was quickly required from us that newer, innovative applications, processes, workflows were desired from the field or from the ministries or from the state health administrations. We were pushed to give them better features, more functionalities, and more, I would say, applications of eSanjeevani. So eSanjeevani has now evolved into a huge ecosystem, which not only addresses general medicine, but all specialties, super specialties. On number of occasions, eSanjeevani has led to saving of lives because doctors could identify the threatening ailment that the patient is in, and they've connected the patients with the nearest ICUs, got them transferred to the ICUs through ambulances. So that is the kind of infrastructure, digital infrastructure that is developed in the form of eSanjeevani, which is not only a telemedicine platform, but is also getting evolved into a larger ecosystem, like a super information highway. And it is not only these specialties, like we used it in COVID, we are using it for HIV/AIDS, and inmates in jails are using, inmates in orphanages and old age homes are using. So this is leading to a lot of benefit, convenience, and comfort for just about every stakeholder who is using the platform. Next slide, please. And the health ministry has now moved further. After ensuring that the adoption has come through, the numbers have shown up, and now the Health Ministry is working with the state administrations to bring about the element of quality into this. So the data that we are having in eSanjeevani is just like the health administrators just imagine, and they let us know what kind of data they need. We will be able to present to them. So Health Ministry recently wanted this data, that what is the average duration of the calls on eSanjeevani. So this is what we've come out with. Next slide, please. And then the Health Ministry is also interested in knowing that how many patients are using eSanjeevani for follow-up consultations as well. First consultation could be, just by accident or just by need, but they want that the patients must get glued to a modality like eSanjeevani so that it saves a lot of time, convenience, etc. And these are the kinds of analytics that we have started to draw for the health administrators. Next slide, please. And an interesting study was carried out in the state of Jharkhand by an independent agency. They came out with findings that every consultation that happens in the rural areas, it leads to a saving in the journey of up to 21.5 kilometers. And it not only saves journey, but also saves out-of-pocket expense, which the patients would have otherwise made. It amounts to around 941 rupees per consultation, and cumulative savings are in $1 billion. Next slide, please. And I would not dig deeper into this slide. However, I would like to touch upon few aspects that eSanjeevani, as I said, has shaped into a huge ecosystem. We have already integrated eSanjeevani with more than 24 medical devices, which are more or less point-of-care devices, which are suitable for use in health and wellness centers in rural areas to empower doctors, that these devices, if procured by the state administrations, will just have to plug them into their internet system, and they'll be able to send wirelessly the data captured from the patient after the results into eSanjeevani, and then forward it to the doctors for their diagnosis or better diagnosis. Next slide, please. And this is something which is coming up in near future. We are silently working without disturbing the doctors. They would have to do nothing, the patients as well. There are technologies which are enabling speech-to-speech translation on the fly. And there are institutions like NIMHANS, one in the country in Bangalore, and they get patients from all over the country. Similarly, there are institutions like AIIMS in New Delhi, super specialty hospitals, etc., who are catering to the patients across the country. We are putting in place a mechanism wherein even if the patient is not able to speak English or any other language other than the regional language, the doctor doesn't understand that regional language, the eSanjeevani on the fly would translate the patient's language into the preferred language of the doctor, and doctors will speak the preferred language, will get translated into the preferred language of the patient. They'll be able to converse. So that is how we are trying to break the language barriers to access specialized health services over eSanjeevani as well. Next slide, please. And that is not the end of the story. When we translate these languages or these discussions, we'll archive them and use the data in the transcribed form, anonymized of course, to run all analytics, whatever would be required by public health experts in the states and at the center to write more effective policies and to understand the quality of healthcare that is being delivered through eSanjeevani in remote sense. Next slide, please. We've already started providing consultations, although these are to be set on production. Telemanas, which is the National Telemental Health Program, is using eSanjeevani for video consultations. So we are enabling eSanjeevani to be used in various forms and mechanisms, and we look up to the state administrations, and Gujarat being one of our, I would say, favorites, that we trouble them a lot by asking them to try our newer features, and their team is so, I would say, friendly, so cooperative, so supportive that they enable the rollout of the feature from our lab into the field in no time. So I thank Commissioner Sir for leading such a team or providing this kind of leadership to them, that we are able to work at our highest efficiencies. So with this, I thank you all for the patience listening. I'll be happy to address your queries at the end of the session. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sood. Now, I invite Professor Manisha Inamdar, Director in STEM, for delivering her session and sharing her experience with us.
Good afternoon, and big thank you to the organizers for considering me, for sharing my thoughts with you today. And also, I'd like to thank our respected commissioner and dignitaries on the dais for, being here and sharing their wisdom and expertise. So, as you will see, my area or topic that I will talk to you about today is a little different from what we've been hearing about all day. And I'm quite excited after hearing, the great leaps and strides that this state has made. We all know very well how advanced the pharmacology sector has been here. And I'm, hopeful that we will see similar strides in newer areas. So today I'd like to talk to you about medicine, but this is what we all know medicine is, right? You tell the layperson on the street, and each one will have kind of a different idea of what they think medicine means. But what I'd like to talk to you about today is something a little different, which is called regenerative medicine and looks like this. This is the medicine that will lead to cures for various kinds of diseases that we thought were essentially uncurable. So reversing effects of injuries or loss of limbs and so on and so forth. Now, we all know very well the example of, animals. For example, the lizard loses its tail, and you meet the same lizard a few weeks later, and it's got a brand new tail. So if the lizard can do it, why can't we, who are much smarter, supposedly, do the same? Why can't we, regenerate our heart, regenerate neurons, the pancreatic cells, and so on and so forth? Can we grow new teeth and bones, and so on? So while currently we cannot do all of this, some parts of our body can regenerate, for example, the liver. And also many areas of our body constantly are renewed. And this is because we have a special set of cells called stem cells, which repair or damaged tissues, so help us regenerate. So we've already formed the heart, formed our limbs, and so on. And now, if need be, we need to understand how to make them again. And the reason stem cells can do this is because these are special cells set aside when the animal is developing. And these cells can make more stem cells like themselves, but can also make other kinds of cells. Whereas a standard cell in our body, if it divides, it becomes something else, it cannot go back. Okay? So this is a special kind of stem cell, and these cells are present in our skin, in our hair follicles, in our blood, and so on and so forth. And a classic example is, of course, the blood stem cell. We lose millions of blood cells each day, and we form new ones. So stem cells are really the raw material for regenerative medicine, because this is a natural process. But how do we harvest this process? How do we make it into a medicine that can harness the capacity of the stem cells and can combine it in a precise manner? Because suppose you're able to grow an arm like the lizard grows its tail. You want to make sure you grow your arm and then stop. You don't want to keep growing, right? How does the tail know when to stop growing? To have this kind of precise control, you need a deep understanding of the science. And, we have a very learned audience here. Each of you know how much time and effort it takes to develop a single drug, a molecule which is well defined. What we're talking about is, a living entity which is defined only to a certain extent, which to a large extent has a mind of its own. Given the right context, it can change, right? A stem cell can, especially a stem cell from the embryo, can form various kinds of cells. It can make an entire organism. So how do you control it to form a muscle or a heart or, a lung and so on? And that is the challenge, and that is a vast, vast challenge. But that is what we need to understand to have precision biotherapeutics. This is the futuristic medicine. And already experimentally in the laboratories, people have shown that you can make many eyes, many kidneys. You can see from the image there, we know it's a functional kidney because it filters urine, right? You can make many guts and so on and so forth. But these are all currently experimental. And the aim of the field is to, make these in a proper, precise way so that you can transplant these for better disease outcomes. And ultimately, one wants to, cure diseases, not just treat them, and one also wants to prevent diseases. And there is the power of gene editing. If you can combine human genome editing with stem cell biology, then you can really potentially cure diseases. And human genome editing, of course, has been prematurely fast-forwarded by some unethical attempts to gene edit human embryos, leading to what are now known as the CRISPR babies. So we know that these efforts will move ahead whether or not the world is ready. So I think it's time to now already start thinking in a more sort of serious and wider way about these potential applications. So I'm going to just highlight 2 or 3 examples of regenerative therapies that are currently in use, in play, and where we stand today. So everything else is experimental. So one kind of therapies is based on gene therapies. And gene therapies, they basically work by replacing a disease-causing gene with a normal gene. So it's called genetic engineering in the cell. And then you take this engineered cell and put it back in the patient. Depending on when you do it, how you do it, the outcomes will vary. But the most famous example is of Zolgensma, anti-spinal muscular atrophy therapy. And as you may know, this is something which has been made available kind of philanthropically all over the world. The treatment costs about 16 crores of rupees. So it's currently only by a lottery that one can get it. Now, this is something which is, of course, unaffordable at present, but it's something that one needs to aim towards because we cannot depend on philanthropy to give us these kind of therapies. So this is one example of a gene therapy. The other is cell therapies. They may be of 2 different types. You take your own cell, or which is autologous cell therapy, and you try and treat your own condition, or you take allogenic cell therapy from the donor. And commonly, of course, we know about blood transfusions, we know about bone marrow transfusions in the case of leukemias. There are some scaffold-based transplants where you can take certain cell types and put them back in and so on. And some of the most widely used cell therapy, widely known, is the CAR T cell therapy, the chimeric antigen receptor T-cell based immunotherapy, which is already in use in all over the world and even in India to a small extent for cancer or for various kinds of myelomas and lymphomas. And this again is as you can see on the slide, an extremely expensive therapy, but this involves taking a part of our blood cells called the T cells and engineering them to recognize the cancer, aspects of the cancer cell and put them back. So these cells will then go and target the cancer cells and get rid of them. So this is an extremely successful therapy. Like I said, used worldwide, also used and being developed. I mean, it's still, there are so many different aspects to it, being developed for many kinds of cancers in our country. But the challenge, of course, is accessibility and cost. So this is the current, standard of global cell therapies. And like I said, CAR T cell therapy is, of course, the most prevalent, thousands of cases treated worldwide. And then there are a host of other cell therapy. But the most, I would say, successful and current and recent, which combines the power of stem cells and the power of genome editing, is the one of sickle cell disease treatment. So in 2020, Victoria Gray was, a patient suffering from sickle cell anemia or sickle cell disease. Her stem cells were taken, edited, and put back. And this involved activating a normal form of hemoglobin. You may know that in sickle cell disease, there's a mutation in hemoglobin which causes sickling of the beta globin chain is mutated. And this therapy involves activating a normal fetal hemoglobin, which can, rescue the disease. And she's perfectly healthy today, and I think over 100 patients have been treated in this way today. So this is the blood stem cell-based therapies, and of course there are many more. Some are in preclinical trials, some are in clinical trial for all kinds of blood disorders, but mostly for monogenic blood disorders. So this is the global status of gene therapies. And while I won't go through the details, it's very clear that, you see the white region where our country is, because, we are still at a very early stage. Compare that to the wide range of gene therapies that are today available all over the world. And this is because, of course, there are a lot of challenges to the process itself, but more importantly, there are challenges that are, more unique to us. Well, the process is extremely complex, much more complex than, making a small molecule like a drug, because you need a specific donor, you need a specific kind of stem cell, which may be an iPS stem cell or a blood stem cell. These need to be banked. So, these therapies can't be individual only, because that will not be sustainable. So to call something a therapy, it needs to be a standard of care. And a standard of care needs to be well, of course, standardized and quality controlled. And if one had to do that for each patient individually, it's just not sustainable. So one has to find the right kind of cell therapy that can be scaled up. Now, all of you know very well what challenges scale-up brings, right? Even if you're dealing with a defined molecule, a defined chemical entity. Think about scaling up to billions and billions of liters, a fermenter scale of a living entity that is replicating, multiplying, and that can do essentially make any part of our body. So there lies the challenge, and there lies the challenge not only in maintaining quality, but in controlling this sort of entity. So our major challenge, of course, is not just the process, but also having access and having training, having a critical mass of people who know this field, who can think along these lines, and who know, how to go about the process. And so, but this is the future of medicine, which is already here, actually. And we should not. The field is still nascent, so we should not be left behind. So the strategy to support it would be to create an ecosystem, create a critical mass, and of course, most important mechanisms for regulatory approval. And there are many such efforts undertaken by the Department of Biotechnology. For stem cell research in India, there are many national institutes where this is carried out, mainly under the Department of Biotechnology, also under ICMR and DST. And we have various governing mechanisms for governing stem cell research. We also have several government initiatives, especially under the BIRAC of the Department of Biotechnology, to develop this ecosystem of entrepreneurship in stem cells. And what it really needs is biomanufacturing hubs and cooperation along these lines. So while these initiatives go through the various stages, these cannot be sustained purely by government support. We need a lot of investment in this. And what I'd like to do in the last couple of minutes is just talk about efforts at INSTEM, the Institute for Stem Cell Science and Regenerative Medicine, which I currently head. So this is India's first stem cell institute, and our mandate is to do fundamental and clinically relevant research in areas of stem cell biology, focusing towards clinical translation. But more importantly, what we have now assimilated in our mandate is being first a source of quality stem cells, because your raw material is very important. This source should be indigenous, because here, the genetics matters, the genome matters, and develop guidelines and policy, help the government develop these, and also, of course, training and develop the critical mass. So these are our broad areas of research. We have two major programs that we've undertaken in this area, supported by the Department of Biotechnology and collaboratively. One is to, in the area of brain disorders, we have generated, along with NIMHANS and NCBS, a cohort of iPS cell lines, which represent the local genetic population and local genetic disorders. And the other is to take blood disorders and make a GMP bank. Also, we have developed several technologies, but what I'd like to highlight is the one on the right of the screen. In addition to technologies to support stem cell science, the Center for Stem Cell Research at Vellore, which is the clinical translation arm of INSTEM, has recently launched a phase 3 clinical trial, which is gene therapy based for hemophilia A, which is lentiviral mediated gene therapy based. And like I said, one thing that we have subsumed into our mandate is to develop this capacity and critical mass. So we've set up this platform for enabling stem cell and organoid research and training. We're setting up a biorepository of locally derived iPS cell lines. Already we have 107 iPS lines from ADPS. We have 2 human embryonic stem cell lines that I derived many years ago, and we have some GMP lines also. And a major part of our effort is also in training to ensure that we maintain quality. We have, international faculty training. I'm a part of the International Stem Cell Banking Initiative steering group, and we have support from them and a collaboration to set up stem cell training programs. And finally, to build capacity in the country in all these areas. I should mention that our upcoming training is, including GSBTM faculty training program. And finally, one needs to close this gap between research and training and, innovation and investment. And this is what we are doing. We're developing this pipeline of stem cell models that anybody can come, train, use, and so on. And one example of such a model is a pipeline to look at generating organoid models of early human development to de-risk drug discovery. Because as you all know, it's very difficult to do testing of drugs in development, especially human development. One tends to do it in mice or animal models, but that's just not the same. So a project, major project, actually the first discovery biology project funded here by the Gates Foundation, we have started developing these models to de-risk drug discovery. And our efforts have been recognized all over by being in the circle of stem cell institutes and centers of the International Stem Cell Society. We are, I think, only the second in Southeast Asia to be recognized. And with that, I'll thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Manisha Ingamdar, for delving deep into the issues related to regenerative technologies. I now invite Mr. Michael Blackwell, who is Vice President and MD, Medtronics India, and he has specially flown down to India for this particular session. I especially thank him.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you, Commissioner Secretary Patel, for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here It's a pleasure to be back in Gujarat. I live in Mumbai currently, but every time I come to Gujarat, I'm reminded of my first experiences with India. And it was through my best friend, whose family is from Surat. And she used to cook for Samir. And then Samir would invite me over. And so for a long time now, I've held Gujarat in particular in my heart. So certainly happy to be here today. So my talk is really going to focus around medical devices and healthcare technology. And while Medtronic is a large medical device company, really my focus is speaking for or on behalf of all the medical device companies, manufacturers from that perspective. And so you see on the screen one of our favorite words, engineering the extraordinary. And we think, and so I've worked for Medtronic for the last 17 years, and I have been incredibly fortunate to live in 4 different countries. And I have either been a field sales rep in the surgical suite, or a manager or director or vice president for virtually all of our businesses. So I've got firsthand experiences in most of our portfolios and can speak to that. And so when we talk about engineering the extraordinary, I thought the first thing I would do is show just a very short video what we mean by engineering the extraordinary and the impact that medical devices have for our patients. Could you pause right there? Perfect. Okay. Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen is a gentleman who has been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and one of the bigger challenges around Parkinson is your gait, spasticity, tremors, things of that nature. On the left video, this is with our deep brain stimulation system implanted but turned off. And then on the right, you can see that it's turned on. And this is a therapy that's close to my heart, as I was a sales rep. I was a therapy consultant for deep brain stimulation, and the profound impact that this particular device does for a condition that is incredibly debilitating from a neurological standpoint. These are the days I remember most of my 17 years. It was meeting with patients on a daily basis, meeting with neurologists, neurosurgeons, and hearing their stories, knowing that there are ways to improve Parkinson's or essential tremor or a number of different disease states that are indicated for deep brain stimulation. So I thought best to show you what we talk about, or the impact that medical devices can have. So go ahead and finish the video. I think it's another 10 seconds. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so just a little bit about Medtronic, just from a size and scope standpoint. I'm not going to spend very long on this screen here, but in India, we have over 40 years of experience being in India, based out of Mumbai, with offices both in Gurgaon and Mumbai from that standpoint. We have over 2,000 employees here in India. And what I really will call the attention to is the last part, the research and development piece, where we have the second largest Medtronic Innovation and Experience Center in the world, just behind the US. We employ over 1,000 Indian men and women engineers that are based in Hyderabad. And I saw on an earlier slide something that grabbed my attention. Of course, very familiar with Make in India, but then it was Make in India, made for the world. And I think what we do at the MEIC building in particular is exactly that, is the innovation, the technology. We are developing it in India, but really exporting it for the entire world. And so there's some profound impacts there that we have when we think about designing in India and having a real substantial contribution here locally in India. Okay, I just wanted to talk about a couple other products here. Just, the idea, when I came to India, I remembered our founding father over 60 years ago, Earl Bakken, who developed the pacemaker basically in his garage. And I had an opportunity to listen to him speak, and I met him once. One of the things he would always talk about, which surprised me from a Medtronic standpoint, he didn't talk about business. He didn't talk about spreadsheets. He didn't talk about sales. He didn't talk about marketing. What he talked about, and this is 16 years ago, he talked about how do we expand our portfolio across the world so that more people, more patients, and that stuck with me, and I think that that's mostly what put me on the course of how do I get outside of the United States? How do I make a greater impact in Canada, Southeast Asia, and now in India? And some of these devices, these technologies here are huge, and they're available here. The second one is the smallest pacemaker in the world. And usually I have one in my pocket, but I can tell you it's about this big, just a little larger than a standard pill. And that's making a huge difference with a number of different indications. Our insulin pump, of course, the stents we've talked about a little bit from that standpoint. From a robotic standpoint, we have 2 different platforms for robotics, all being further developed with artificial intelligence in mind, both from a surgical perspective and spine, as well as the Hugo system from that side. And then last but not least, India is cutting edge in terms of having approved to treat hypertension through renal denervation. So again, my job is to bring these technologies to India for Indians. Healthcare scenario. So I've got a couple slides I'm going to talk about here, but it talks, what they're going to talk about is how it's about alignment, right? And I think that's why we're here when we think about holistic healthcare, and you can see it across the board from pharmaceuticals, medical devices, healthcare technology, hospitals, wellness centers. Right? There's not one single entity that can do it by themselves. It takes all of these things working together in that high level of collaboration to ensure that we're maximizing our efforts here in India for Indians. So the first slide talks about patient concerns. And before it's 3 clicks, I'll show you that. But so in 2016, so 17 years with Medtronic, but in 2016, I was a patient. And many of you in the audience are patients too. I actually had open heart surgery. So working for a medical device company, and then also having open heart surgery, you realize things that you don't every day, but that just helps drive that innovation and the reason why that these therapies should be available everywhere in the world, from that standpoint. And these are the things that I thought about as a patient, and they all ring true. Quick recovery. I want to get in and out of the hospital as soon as possible. Shorter hospital stay. I mean, there's a lot of sick people in the hospitals. You don't want to be in the hospitals. You want to get out as quickly as you can. And then cost efficiency, and then quality. From a patient standpoint, that's what you think about. Now, I went under open heart surgery. I have a Medtronic valve inside of me, but I was a cardiac surgery sales rep, so I knew everything about the procedure. That's probably a little bit too much, but from a patient concerns. Now, If you look to the next, so from a clinical, remember I talked about this is holistic, right? We all have to be on the same page. We have to be thinking the same way. And give me one more click here. Can I have one click? Thanks. So the clinicians thinking very similarly, right? They're thinking shorter hospital stay because they want to lower the increase of infection or complications that could happen after surgery. They're looking for minimally invasive technology, right? It's not just a cosmetic why you want to be minimally invasive. It's less blood loss. It's the potential of less infection. So it's the shorter days, the number of days for a TAVR procedure, which is an interventional procedure, versus open heart is 3 to 1. So that's the concept that the clinician's thinking about. A lean learning curve. We talk about 3 pillars of success, right? And that third pillar is training and education and how important it is. And so we have a lot of AI-driven functions that will help establish surgeons by looking at an encyclopedia or a library of cases that they can compare and learn from. And then finally, clinical outcomes. And so if you remember on the patient slide, it was about quality. From there, it's clinical outcomes. And that's what drives all the behaviors is, at the end of the day, how do we get our best outcomes from that standpoint? Okay, what we need to do. And when we were building this slide, I assumed the first thing everyone in the audience would say, well, is who's we? And again, it's exactly what I had said before. No one entity can address the challenges of healthcare alone. It takes us all. And every single one of us needs to understand that each of these players works together to collaborate for the best outcomes for Indians. And that's the ultimate goal. And so what we need to do, so seek to advance the full spectrum of care. Right? That's that expansion of our portfolio. And then from optimizing existing treatment to reimagining healthcare standards is how we take that and complete the cycle from that standpoint. Okay, this I believe is my last slide, and I think it's been great listening to my colleagues and the other speakers from this morning because we're all saying the same thing. And I think that's the most important thing when we talk about how do we get aligned. Right? And we think new regulations, right? We want to make sure that we're bringing safe products to our patients, to the people in India. The medical device policy, the research and innovation scheme, and then the Medtrek Mitra, all of these are working in conjunction to ultimately deliver quality products in a fast, efficient, affordable way. Okay, that concludes mine. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Michael. Now I invite Ms. Geeta Manjunath, founder and CEO, Niramai Analytics, for a session on diagnostic healthcare. In diagnostic healthcare.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. And good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be among the vibrant healthcare visionaries out here on stage and off stage. Yes, I'm Geeta, basically a computer scientist turned entrepreneur. And I've been listening to wonderful talks and educational insights that my co-panelists have shared and earlier talks as well. And it's interesting that I'm coming here to present our work made in India from a small startup of maybe 50 people to right after a 70-year-old multinational company. So please don't compare, but you'll know where we are going in terms of innovation. So what I want to talk about is the transformation that AI, artificial intelligence, is bringing to healthcare. Of course, we all talk about digital health is the future or current and so on. Now, once you have digitalized technology, digitalized information, how do we analyze this? And everybody knows AI is the buzzword. And when we talk about diagnosis, of course, it is the final biopsy, the biochemistry and all of biotechnology, biochemistry, all that. But the starting point is, of course, the medical images. In most diseases, first you start with imaging the body, which, by the way, is a lot of pattern recognition in terms of identifying where the problem is, which, of course, radiologists are very good at this. But there is a human eye which is trying to do this. And what has become more and more clear is this is one area where AI can play a huge role because it's about data and analysis of patterns and visuals is something that AI is very, very good at. Oops, sorry. So just to sort of clear the air about AI, like AI is obviously all of you know what it is, but essentially trying to make a machine make some decisions that usually really, really highly expert brains do this. And the way we do it is to provide a lot of training data, showing some images and saying this is cancer, showing some images saying this is not cancer, and make the model or make the machine learn the model of differentiating between cancer, no cancer. As an example, it could be TB, no TB, COVID, no COVID. So it could be many of these classification tasks or many other such tasks. Some of you, of course, may be wondering machine learning. Machine learning is part of this, and many people would have heard about deep learning. Deep learning is part of machine learning. And there are several subspecializations that come in here. But when I say AI, it's sort of, all of these put together. And there are several benefits of AI, particularly for radiology. As I said, AI loves images and does very well. And that's a little bit hard for an expert to come in and do a, analysis with the naked eye in general. So what is well known and it's been proven is that it definitely improves the productivity of the doctors who have to do this diagnosis by visual analysis because it's computer, so it can do many things together and you can look at very high resolution, a lot of data can be crunched and so on and so forth. It has also been proven that AI-based tools can help reduce the missed diagnosis, missed cancers, for example. Also misdiagnosis. Many times there's overdiagnosis. You think there's cancer, go operate and remove all the tissue, and then probably it's just fibroadenoma. So, these kind of things are seen as well. So reducing, improving the accuracy of the overall diagnosis is another thing that definitely is proven. And several other things, objective quantification. That is, there's always subjectivity when you're seeing an image and then trying to sort of say, oh, this pattern looks like cancer, as opposed to a number which the algorithm can give, and using that number, doctor can decide what kind of, care management that is needed. An example for this would be, think about your glucometer. Almost every day or every month, many people do this sugar test, right? What if it was a litmus paper? You have to dip a paper into your blood stream, and then it will show you some color, and you have to guess whether it's high sugar or not, looking at the violet color. That would have been very, very difficult for many people, right? Now it's a number. So based on that number, you're able to detect. So that's something that AI can bring in, the quantification aspect of it. And based on these numbers, whether it's diabetic or not is something, of course, now many people themselves decide, but usually doctors can decide as well. But what's very, very passionate for me and very, very relevant for India and countries like India is how AI can be used to bridge the healthcare divide. We talk about digital divide, there are like literate people, computer literate, unliterate and all. There's a huge divide we all saw, especially even in the COVID time, digital divide, the type of infrastructure that exists in the rural areas versus healthcare in urban areas, the type of skill set that exists, and so on and so forth. And AI can be used beautifully to bridge this gap. How? In a rural area, we can have AI robots doing some right-in-time, analysis, identifying among these 1,000 people, who are those 100 people who need to be brought to the hospital for a higher infrastructure, doing and making this done by simple health workers. So AI can be tools to make small health workers really become more experts, you know. So that's one way of how it can help in rural areas. In urban areas as well, it can help because the doctors are very, very busy, especially the expert doctor. And how do we ensure that the AI can take away simple diagnosis, simple, very easily, negative cases, normal cases, identifying this automatically and make the doctor focus mainly on the difficult cases or suspicious cases for any particular disease. So that way the productivity of the doctor increases, all the nice requirements of patient experience and so on also increase. And how does AI do this? How is AI able to do this? So many of you would have seen this continuum of care, you know, this particular diagram where we see a lot of people on the left side, which is basically healthy people. Over time and over the disease progression, you'll see that the health status will reduce and the treatment cost at that particular stage towards the left is much higher. So one of the quiz questions I usually ask is, what's the most costliest bed, right? It's not in the Leela Palace. It's really the ICU bed, right? So it's really, once the health status goes that side, cost becomes really, really expensive. And it's something that India cannot afford to do, right? Especially looking at the rural population and underserved population and so on. So what AI can do is to look at the data, health status at one particular point in time and kind of predict what's going to happen in 1 year from now, 6 months from now, 6 days from now. Depends on what kind of data you have, what kind of predictions you're able to do. So you are able to pull a person who's almost going down the left side back to the right side with the right kind of intervention. This by far is something that an AI-based diagnosis can do. Identify a future's health status being declining and take corrective action so that you can make the person well with lower treatment costs and much more easily as well. So instead of saying all this sort of bada gyan, what I thought I'll do is to share my own experience in the last 7 years of running Niramai and how we have used AI and diagnosis using medical imaging, using AI to save many, many lives from one of the dreaded diseases, which is breast cancer for women. It is the top cancer in women, which is killing 684,000 women every year. And this is one of the most curable of all the cancers. 2,000 women die every day unnecessarily. It can be stopped. Nobody needs to die of breast cancer. The only thing we need to make sure is early detection. People wait till there is a huge lump before they go to a hospital. They feel like unless there's a lump, there's no need. No, we all know from COVID experience that earlier you go, you don't need to go to an ICU. Similarly, in this particular case, mortality rate for stage 3, stage 4 detection can be as low as 10% for a 5-year mortality compared to 90% or 95% for a stage 0, stage 1. How can we do early detection? By regular screening. Why is it not happening? Because in India, every alternate lady detected with breast cancer is dying. Every 6 minutes, one person is. Today, when I started, like after this, 2 people have already died in India for breast cancer. 4 people have already gotten breast cancer. So this is the rampant. I think many of you would have had at least one cancer patient in your family or friend circle, which is unfortunate. That's what we are seeing. So how can we make early detection happen? Today, if you see what is, and I know I have many Department of Health officials here, and I would love to, I'm proud to have had an opportunity to talk about this, is that NCD, the team is doing really, really well. Having said that, because of the affordability, accessibility issues, to address the needs of the scale of India, hand examination is the standard. This is called clinical breast examination, yes. It's somebody using their hand. Usually it is a health worker who is touching to see if there is a lump, and if there is a lump, she is bringing them. But lump can only be felt in stage 2 or more, which is 2 or 2.5 centimeters. And we're using health worker. There's so much subjectivity. And my experience in Gulbarga tells me that the ASHA worker will say, yes, there's no lump in this whole village. But if you ask the patients, nobody has even touched to find a lump. Okay, unfortunate. This is the truth. At least I can share my patient experience questionnaire, which says this. So there is a lot of issues with this. So can we go for a mammogram, which is the default standard in many countries? It becomes very, very expensive for us. And also, in India, we have more dense tissue. So dense tissue is something where a lady has more fibroglandular tissue, and mammography is known to have low sensitivity. You can see in the center image, one of them has a lot of whites, another one is a little bit black. A lot of whites is seen in the dense tissue. Mammography is basically X-ray, just like you take an X-ray of my hand, white is hardness. So you cannot find cancer in a dense breast in mammography. And a lot of women in India and Asian countries, 70% of ladies above 45 years have dense breasts. All women under 45 years have dense breasts. So it leaves very, very small segment of people who can benefit from a mammogram in countries like India. And also everyone who's taken a mammogram, or who knows a lady who's taken a mammogram, knows the experience of doing a mammogram is not so nice, where a person has to remove her clothes in front of typically a female technologist, but it may be a male as well. And then there is compression and so on and so forth. So can we do better? Can we use AI to solve this problem? Is a question I asked when, unfortunately, I lost two of my cousin sisters to breast cancer. They were just 38 and 42 years. So I said, what can we do as a researcher? Can I use technology to solve this problem? That's when we came up with this new method of detecting breast cancer using AI over thermal scans. We use a simple thermal imaging device, which looks like the cameras that we have here, and even smaller, in fact. And then okay, I have 3 minutes, done. So we use this, measure the temperature variations on the chest, and convert the 4 lakh temperature points into a breast health report completely automatically using AI-based technology. With this, we've clinically proven to detect stage 0 cancer, 4 millimeters, and also in a very, very privacy-aware manner. The lady is inside a booth and the technician is outside. Nobody touches her or nobody sees her when she's actually taking the test. Like a changing room, she goes in, closes the door, and then removes her clothes. With this, we've been able to actually develop this technology of converting temperature scans to a breast health report and patented it around the world with 33 patents just for this technology of converting temperature maps to a cancer health report. And this has 11 granted patents in US and rest in Japan, China, Singapore, Canada, Europe, and of course 13 in India as well. So these are granted patents, make it in for the world, as the previous speaker was saying. It is having about 25 AI algorithms when it's doing this conversion. And it not only says whether there's an abnormality or not, it also gives a score to the level of abnormality, like the diabetic sugar measurement, as I mentioned. And this is one view, but also you have to explain, is it because of vascularity? Is it because of milk duct issue? Is it because of infectious aspect? That also is automatically given. Is it clinically proven? Yes. We have 42 peer-reviewed public, PubMed research papers available on niramai.com/thermalytics. And I'm glad to share that, I'm touching wood here, our negative predictive value is more than 98%, which means that when we say no, it's pretty much no. When we say yes, then she needs to go into further diagnostic workup. And we have these papers in very top journals like American Society of Clinical Oncology, Lancet, that's my favorite, and so on. We do have regulatory clearance because you can't go to the market without regulatory clearance. We have, of course, Indian clearance. We also have European and US FDA clearance. And of course, we have also started in other Asian and African countries. So far, 150,000 women have benefited, 150,000 women, and it will be commercial in 8 countries. And again, I can't do it alone with a small company of 60 people. Really, call upon the collaborators here to take this solution to every lady in India, definitely in Gujarat. Just before this, I went and we had a discussion with the Gujarat Cancer Society. If everything goes well, we will be doing that shortly. We also have mobile medical unit because it's a very, very portable device, no radiation, just measuring temperature. So we also have simple tempo traveler. We can have this and go to villages of India and other places. many, many big hospitals and small hospitals and cancer societies and corporates. You can do this test inside a corporate office in rural areas as well. We can do it without any issue. It's just 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes of the person, and it is instant reporting in most cases. One clear example, given that we have several government officials here, we have done several schemes in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Maharashtra, and also Punjab. So here I share one with 12,000 women screened. Just 300 had to be brought to the hospital. Not everyone went through follow-up diagnostic, but already 25 cancers have been treated, and in a record time of just one machine going around. And this is the first ever time AI has been used autonomously in rural screening, particularly for cancer. And of course, some of you would have missed Dr. Karthik, who is the IAS officer of, senior IAS officer of Punjab, who almost in every talk, he talks about this success. So the good part is, for India, we need flexibility. We are a subcontinent for a reason, right? So we have the flexibility of installing this in a hospital, in a van, in a CHC, PHC, or even at home, yeah? So that's what we are trying to do. Of course, we are made in India product. I'm proud to say this in front of this audience. And also we are winners of multiple awards, including the Commonwealth Digital Health Award across 159 countries, the G20 award that was across all the 20 countries, and in World Bank Award in Las Vegas, and several other ones. And recently I had the privilege of inviting or being invited to speak at the United Nations headquarters in New York as a primary speaker next to the President of UN. Thank you so much for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I'm grateful to all the speakers for delivering and sharing their experiences in their respective fields. I'm also thankful to the audience for patient listening and engrossing themselves thoroughly throughout the session. I especially thank Mr. Sood for sharing us his insight over the e-Sanjeevani program, the telemedicine, the flagship telemedicine program of government, and wherein it showed how healthcare accessibility and affordability and quality across the state and the country can be provided to people. Especially the initiatives like real-time translation, speech analytics, and telemanas, they were especially notable. We, as a state government, we are committed to supporting such initiatives and taking healthcare services to the people. I thank Professor Manisha Inamdar, who delved deep into the topic on regenerative medicine. This topic has, she has shown us how it has very huge potential for quality healthcare and how it will address issues related to managing symptoms to providing cures in future, and how individuals and society can benefit, and how we can gain early benefits from this healthcare ecosystem by use of regenerative technology. I also thank Michael Blackwell for sharing his experiences on diagnostics, treatment, patient care, and how Medtronics has participated through Make in India initiatives, supporting government's efforts. Dr. Geeta Manjunath, she has started a very successful startup, and especially I was also very much impressed by the work done by you in early diagnostic. The word used, thermalytics, for early diagnosis and saving our female from this dangerous cancer. So early diagnosis is the key to it. So how AI can be used in health initiatives, you have very successfully shown it. And all these efforts, we as a state government or as a government of India, we are committed to providing quality and accessible and affordable healthcare services to people, and with very good cooperation from the private sector as a joint effort will definitely take it to higher and higher successes. I thank all the participants. Now I'm open to question answer session. So anybody who wants to raise or discuss an issue, you can share your name and ask your question. 4 or 5 questions will take because we have some time. Ask someone to get her the mic.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Parimal Patel. I represent KD Hospital from Ahmedabad. So the question here is about when we were talking about gene editing. We have a lot of dialysis patients in India, lot of kidney failures, and it is a lot of burden to the nation. By doing some technological advancements, can we proceed for a better cure, like a routine blood test, which will save a lot of resources of government? That was the first question to you, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Yeah, so I'm not sure I completely understood your question, but you wanted to ask whether gene editing can help us avoid dialysis for kidneys. So there are, two possibilities. One is if it is an inherited genetic disorder leading to kidney disease. In some cases, like I showed you for the blood disorders, theoretically one could correct that disorder, but we are far away from implementing that technology. I mentioned briefly about the CRISPR babies where gene editing was done, but that was not a right thing to do because the technology is not safe yet. But one can imagine that, down the line when the technology is made safer, then this would be one route where you completely prevent the disease from appearing. The other scenario is if one could generate or regenerate a kidney or the part of the kidney in the laboratory from stem cells. I showed you an image of mini kidneys that have been generated. If such a system could be transplanted back. Again, that is still experimental, but that is sort of more likely to happen in the near future than gene editing. If the patient's own cells are to be used to regenerate the kidney, then if you know what the disease-causing mutation or genetic defect is, potentially it could be corrected. But generally, these are not single changes, not monogenic. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kanti Balani, OBGYN. I have a question for Geetaji. What is an average cost of your unit, and then can it be in the form of mobile unit? So what will be the cost? My question, and then I'll be also asking to Commissioner how we can help rural women also.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much for that question. Of course, we understand that India is a very price-sensitive requirement or market, if you want to call it. So because of that, we have different types of reports that are generated. A triage report, for example, can be less than 200 rupees per person. It can be even lower if there is a higher volume in the screening that can be done. So basically, there's a small device that person has to buy, which is for the thermal sensor, which is not something that we manufacture, but we collaborate with hardware manufacturers of thermal cameras, which are many now. After COVID, there are many, many more thermal camera manufacturers. And then there is a per scan part, which I was talking about, sir. And yes, it can be put into mobile vans as well. And we have done it in all of these places, sir. Thank you.
So when you mention 200 rupees cost, is it including the equipment, or thermal sensor itself is a separate?
We can discuss, sir. Depending on the volume, we can discuss, sir.
You can always discuss.
Yes.
And the other suggestion I have it, because Gujarat government has done such a great prenatal care, for all the patients, including in the rural area. If we can take advantage of the same person who is helping the prenatal women, so that
Yes.
all the women can come, or she can help all the women to have a thermal analysis, and then they can be referred to the hospital. So very proud of Matru, project, and we should also take advantage of the same lady to help all the women in the rural area. Thank you.
Thank you for the idea. Thank you, sir. I'll discuss with you offline. Thank you, sir.
What is the timeline for embryonic cell cultivation and stability related challenges? My name is Yesha Patel. I am pharma professional and I am basically method development and qualification area related work doing.
Could you repeat your question, please?
To whom is this your question? To me?
Embryonic stem cell stability
Embryonic.
and cultivation related challenges.
Okay, you said embryonic stem cell therapy and cultivation related therapies. So there are two aspects, embryonic stem cell culture and expansion. So embryonic stem cells, typically it would take about 4 to 5 days for, what we call passages. You may be aware of that, go from one set of cells to the other. And they can essentially be maintained forever because that is their natural property if they are kept in the right conditions. In terms of therapy, one does not use the stem cells themselves for therapy because, as I told you, these cells are capable of forming anything. So typically, what is currently in clinical trials, not yet in therapy, but in many clinical trials, is to take these cells and direct them to make neurons or muscle or whatever one wishes. The clinical trials underway currently are mainly for neurons to treat various neurological disorders or neurodegenerative disorders where the stem cells can make certain kinds of neurons. But that process itself takes a few months because you can imagine for us to form neurons and mature in our brain, it takes decades. So yeah, it's a longer process, but still, doesn't take many years.
Help her with mic. Yeah.
My question is to Professor Manisha and Dr. Geeta. I would like to know the names of the leading institutes or hospitals located in Gujarat which offer immunotherapy as well as artificial intelligence-based thermolytics process. And what is the success rate of these therapies?
So I think the question was, is it available in Gujarat, both thermolytics and immunotherapy? So I'll answer for thermolytics and I pass on to you. So we have done several camps in rural areas and corporates in Gujarat right now. And we also work with like HCG and private hospitals to conduct corporate camps. And also we have it in home screening where people can just order the test home, and we send 2 girls to come in and do the test at home as well. In the hospitals, we have had small successes, I would say. But like I said, just now I'm coming from meeting with Gujarat Cancer Society, and we hope to get something started out there if everything goes well, yeah. And a couple of new hospitals like Apex hospitals and all are starting now, shortly, this month, basically. Any other hospital here interested, it can definitely collaborate. The amount, pricing I told to the previous question is more for a triaging. For a hospital, it will be at least half the price of a mammogram that when you offer to the end user. So there is good margin for you to make. Thank you. Over to you, Manisha.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know about any place practicing immunotherapy in Gujarat. Maybe somebody from the medical community, if anybody is here. But all I can say is there are very few centers in India that have approval to do this. success rate internationally is quite high. I think it's more than 80 to 90% for CAR T cell therapy.
For immunotherapy, from my cancer background, I can mention that you can actually reach an oncologist. They will have connection to the pharma who will provide this. It can be anywhere from 35 lakhs to 70 lakhs for a treatment. Yeah.
Just to stick to our schedule, I will request that we can take up queries during tea break with the expert speakers. Any one of you wants to have any discussion, you can meet speakers and discuss during the tea break so that entire audience, we can shift to the next session in time. So I will hand over to you.
Thank you, sir. I express heartfelt thanks to the distinguished chair and esteemed panelists for enriching the discussion with their thoughtful insights, and take this opportunity to felicitate them with a token of appreciation. To do the honors, I request Dr. Hasmukh Chaudhary, sir, Deputy Director, Rural Health, to felicitate Dr. Sanjay Sood, Associate Director, CTEC Methi, the Government of India. I request Dr. Katira, sir, Deputy Director, Epidemic, to felicitate Professor Manisha Inamdar, Director in STEM, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. I next request Dr. Harshad Patel, sir, Deputy Director, MCH, to felicitate Mr. Michael Blackwell, VP and Managing Director, Medtronic India. I request Dr. Jayesh Sachdev, sir, Deputy Director, Medical Education, to felicitate Dr. Geeta Manjunath, Founder and CEO, Niramay Analytics. And I request Dr. Kadri, sir, EDSHSRC, to felicitate Shri Harshad Patel, sir, Commissioner and Secretary, Government of Gujarat. Thank you. Dr. Harsh Bakshi, I request Dr. Harsh Bakshi, sir, to felicitate Shri Harshad Patel, sir, Commissioner and Secretary, Government of Gujarat. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, we are moving on directly to our next session. However, if someone feels the need to loosen up or grab a cup of tea, you can go outside and quickly come back, please. But we are starting with the next session shortly.